This wasn't just a return, it was a warning. When she stepped through the fog in that armored gear, the entire WWE universe froze. The pyro blasted, the lights cracked, and fans realized instantly. She's BACK and more terrifying than ever in 2025. Most wrestling returns are about celebration. They are designed to make you pop, to make you scream yes, and buy a t-shirt. But what happened at the 2025 Royal Rumble wasn't designed for commerce. It was designed for fear. We often talk about aura in wrestling, that intangible quality that makes a superstar feel larger than life. But what walked down that ramp wasn't just aura. It was a ghost story brought to life. A legend we thought we knew, twisted into something unrecognizable. Today, we aren't just looking at a comeback. We're analyzing a transformation. We're looking at the moment the man died, and something far more dangerous took her place. To understand the terror, you have to understand the context. The 2025 Royal Rumble had been a loud, chaotic night. We'd seen high-flying spots, surprise nostalgic entrants, and the deafening noise of 60,000 people screaming for their favorites. The energy was frantic, high-octane. But when the buzzer hit for entrant number 30, the production truck did something brilliant. They didn't hit a music cue. They killed the audio completely. For 10 agonizing seconds, the only sound in the stadium was the confused murmur of the crowd. This is a classic horror movie, technique deprivation. By taking away the familiar sensory input of entrance music, WWE forced the audience to lean in. We were waiting for a guitar riff, a drum beat, anything familiar. Instead, the arena plunged into a suffocating darkness. Then came the fog, not the fun, rolling smoke we see for baby faces. This was thick, gray, industrial smog that seemed to spill heavily off the stage, swallowing the ramp. It was uncomfortable. You could see the confusion on the faces of the wrestlers in the ring. Ripley, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair. They stopped fighting. They looked at the entranceway, not with anticipation, but with genuine concern. It broke the fourth wall, felt like a technical malfunction or an intrusion. That specific type of silence is rare in modern wrestling. It creates a vacuum where your imagination starts to run wild, projecting your worst fears onto the empty stage. And then, from the depths of that artificial smog, we heard the sound. Not music, but the rhythmic, metallic clanking of heavy boots on steel. Clank, clank, clank. When the silhouette finally broke through the fog, the first thing you noticed was the silhouette itself. It wasn't the swaggering walk we were used to. It was a march. A slow, predatory, militaristic march. The lights flickered updim, orange, industrial hues, revealing the gear. This wasn't the colorful spandex of the man or the flashy coats of big-time Becks. This was armor. She looked like she had walked out of a dystopian wasteland. Distressed leather straps bound her arms. Heavy matte black plating covered her chest and shins. But it was the face that froze the blood. Her eyes were hidden behind dark tactical goggles, stripping away her humanity. Her hair, usually a vibrant fiery orange, was matted and dark, braided tightly against her skull. She didn't acknowledge the crowd. There was no posing, no pointing to the sign, no playing to the hard cam. The terrifying part was the rejection of her own legacy. Becky Lynch has always been a character defined by her connection to the people, whether they loved her or hated her. She saw them. This version, she looked through them. She was an entity entirely self-contained. The commentary to Michael Cole and Corey Graves stayed silent for a solid 30 seconds. It wasn't scripted silence, it was shock. They didn't know how to call this. Was this a heel turn? A reinvention? Or was this a character who had simply stopped caring about the rules of television? She stepped between the ropes. The camera caught a glimpse of her expression under the goggles. It wasn't anger. It was a cold, hollow indifference. That is infinitely scarier than rage. In wrestling psychology, the monster archetype is usually established by size. Think Kane, Undertaker, or Omos. They enter, and smaller wrestlers scatter because of physics. But Becky Lynch isn't a giant. She's a technician. So seeing the ring clear out based purely on presence was a masterclass in storytelling. As she entered the ring, the action didn't just pause. It evaporated. Liv Morgan, the woman who had effectively retired Becky months prior, was standing near the turnbuckle. The history there is Deep Liv took everything from Becky. The title, the spotlight, the validation. You would expect Becky to charge at her to fly into a frenzy of revenge. But she didn't. She simply stood in the center of the ring, slowly turning her head to scan the opponents. The terrifying element here was the stillness. In a match defined by motion-tossing people over ropes, running the ropes, she was a statue. The other women, including powerhouses like Rhea Ripley, hesitated. This hesitation sold the threat more than any move could. It communicated to the audience, something is wrong with her. It wasn't fear of losing the match. It was fear of the unknown. When a wrestler refuses to engage in the standard fight tropes, they become unpredictable. Rhea Ripley, usually the alpha, took a half step back. That subtle movement shifted the entire power dynamic of the division in 1 second. The unspoken dialogue was clear. The mommy character thrives on intimidation, but you cannot intimidate something that feels no emotion. Becky had become a void, and the entire roster felt the gravity of it immediately. When the violence finally started, it was efficient, brutal, and devoid of showmanship. Usually a return spot involves signature moves, the manhandle slam, the disarm her hit in quick succession to get a pop. This was different. A younger talent, perhaps an NXT call-up trying to make a name, charged at her. Becky didn't counter with a wrestling move. She just intercepted the strike and drove the girl into the mat with a sickening thud. No flourish, no taunt. She grabbed the opponent by the wrist and twisted. It looked like a legitimate joint manipulation, ugly and uncomfortable to watch. The audience didn't cheer. They gasped. This is a crucial distinction. Cheers are for entertainment. Gasps are for shock. She proceeded to dismantle 3 superstars in under 2 minutes, but she didn't throw them over the top rope immediately. She hurt them first. She methodically targeted arms and necks, dissecting them with the cold precision of a butcher. When she finally turned her attention to Liv Morgan, the storytelling peaked. She didn't batter Liv, she simply cornered her. She walked through Liv's offense like it wasn't there. When she finally grabbed Liv, she held her face, forcing her to look into the black goggles. It wasn't a fight, it was an execution. She tossed Liv over the rope, not with effort, but with disdain, like she was taking out the trash. This wasn't getting even. This was Becky stating that Liv was beneath her notice. The violence was terrifying because it wasn't passionate, it was clinical. It stripped her opponents of their dignity, leaving them looking not just beaten, but broken. The role of the commentary team is to guide us to, tell us how to feel, the big dog is here, or what a moment. They provide the emotional guardrails. But during this return, those guardrails vanished. Michael Cole, the voice of WWE, usually has a prepared script for big returns. He has the buzzwords ready. But here, he sounded genuinely unsettled. He didn't scream, "The man is back." Instead, he dropped his voice to a low, serious register. I don't know who that is, he muttered. That's Becky Lynch, but look at her eyes, Corey. There's nobody home. This technique is called selling the uncanny, by refusing to use her nicknames, The Man. Big Time Beck's the commentary team stripped her of her marketing. She became a stranger. Corey Graves, usually the heel sympathizer who loves a good villain, was quiet. He eventually whispered, "I've known her for 10 years. I've traveled the world with her. I am telling you right now, I am uncomfortable looking at her." This broke the safety of the television screen. It made the viewer feel like they were witnessing something unauthorized. The production team stopped cutting to crowd reaction shots because the crowd wasn't reacting in a TV-friendly way. They were just staring, mouths open, phones recording in silence. The audio mix highlighted the sounds of the ring, the heavy breathing, the impact of bodies making it feel raw and unpolished. It was a deconstruction of the WWE product, removing the glitz to show the gritty, dangerous reality underneath. The segment ended not with a celebration, but with a standoff. After clearing the ring, the referee attempted to raise her hand. This is the standard protocol. The victor gets their hand raised, the music hits, they smile. Becky snatched her hand away. It was a violent, sharp motion. She looked at the referee with a tilt of her head that suggested she might hurt him too. She didn't want the validation of the official. She didn't want the validation of the fans. She stood in the center of the ring, surrounded by the bodies of the women she had decimated, and simply breathed. The camera zoomed in, looking for a crack in the armor, a hint of the old Becky Lynch, maybe a smirk, a wink. Nothing. She slowly reached up and removed the goggles. Underneath, her eyes were devoid of the fire we used to see. They were cold, hard, and tired. She looked directly into the lens, piercing the fourth wall, again whispered 2 words. The microphones barely picked it up, but the silence in the arena was so profound that we all heard it. No more. Then, the feed cut to black. No copyright logo, no replays, just an abrupt cut to commercial. It left the audience sitting in their living rooms, stunned, trying to process what they had just seen. It was a cliffhanger that relied on emotional exhaustion rather than a physical stunt. In the era of social media, the story doesn't end when the show goes off the air. The terrifying nature of this return was amplified by what happened next online. WWE's digital team, usually quick to post highlights, went dark. They didn't post the clip of her return for 3 hours. When they finally released backstage footage, it wasn't a polished interview. It was leaked footage from the gorilla position. We saw Triple H, the chief content officer, trying to approach Becky as she walked through the curtain. Usually this is where we see the hug, the welcome home. Instead, Becky walked past him without breaking stride. You could see the concern on the faces of the producers. This blurred the lines between storyline and reality, a technique known as a work shoot. Fans started asking, is she actually okay? Is this a character? Or is she legitimately done with the industry's politics? The terror came from the ambiguity. We are used to knowing where the show ends and the person begins. With this return, that line was erased. The locker room reports part of the narrative suggested that other talent were advised to give her a separate dressing room. Not out of respect, but out of safety. It painted her not as a colleague, but as a volatile variable that couldn't be controlled. To truly twist the knife, the story involved her real-life husband, Seth Rollins. In a backstage segment later that night, an interviewer asked Seth about his wife's return. Usually, Seth is high energy, confident. Here he looked tired, looked shaken. He didn't give a promo. He just rubbed his face and said, I don't know, I haven't seen her like that before. I need to go make a call. This grounded the horror in reality. If her own husband is scared, we should be scared. It took the superhero fantasy of WWE and injected it with domestic psychological thriller vibes. It implied that this darkness wasn't just a costume she put on for the ring, it was something she brought home. It raised the stakes infinitely. We weren't just watching a wrestler fight for a belt. We were watching a woman who had seemingly lost her soul and a family trying to figure out if they could get it back. By involving Seth in a non-verbal emotional way, the script signaled that this wasn't just about wrestling, it was about identity. The man was a character who fought for the people. This new version was fighting against the world, including the people who loved her. It was a tragic, scary evolution that added layers of depth to the violence in the ring. Why did this resonate so deeply in 2025? Because it mirrored the cultural mood. The man character of 2018 was about breaking glass ceilings, about bravado and swagger, fit a time of hopeful rebellion. But 2025, the world feels harder, more cynical. Becky's return wasn't about hope, it was about survival. The armor, the silence, the brutality, it was a reflection of a hardened world. Fans online stopped calling her a girl boss or an icon. They started calling her a final boss. The discourse shifted from, who will she face at WrestleMania? To, can anyone actually stop her? This viral reaction proved that the terrifying rebrand worked. She wasn't selling merch. She was selling a mood. The fear she induced was magnetic. People watch horror movies not because they want to be happy, but because they want to feel something intense. In a landscape of sanitized corporate wrestling, she became the raw nerve. She represented the exhaustion of trying to be a hero in a world that constantly demands more. The warning wasn't just to the locker room, it was to the fans. She was holding up a mirror to our own demand for content, showing us the ugly, stripped-down cost of entertainment. The story ends with a twist that reframes the entire return. Weeks later, it would be revealed that the warning wasn't a threat of violence, but a threat of absence. Becky didn't come back to win the title and hold it for a year. She came back to destroy the title's prestige, to prove it meant nothing compared to her own will. The terrifying realization wasn't that she would hurt everyone, it was that she didn't need us anymore. The final shot of her narrative arc in 2025 isn't her holding a belt high with confetti falling. It's her leaving the belt in the center of the ring, walking back through the fog and disappearing again. She proved she was the most dangerous woman on the planet, not by playing the game, but by breaking the board. She returned to show us that the man was a construct we forced her into. The armor was the reality. And when she finally left, the terror lingered because we realized we didn't witness a wrestling return. We witnessed a haunting. She came back stronger than ever, not to lead the division, but to leave it in ruins, proving that sometimes the scariest thing a hero can do is stop pretending to be one. And that is why Becky Lynch's 2025 return will go down in history. Not for the moves, but for the mood. It was a masterclass in psychological storytelling. What do you think? Do you prefer the heroic the man, or this terrifying armored war machine? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into wrestling's greatest stories.